Mr. President,
Senator from Wyoming.
this amendment is the first step to determine how we invest our infrastructure moving forward. Since 2008, we have repeatedly bailed out the Highway Trust Fund. That makes it a trust fund that we cannot actually trust. A highway cost allocation study provides the data that we need in order to make long-term, sustainable, and fiscally sound decisions about how best to invest in our nation's aging infrastructure. These studies used to occur regularly, but the last one was completed over 20 years ago. My amendment would direct the Department of Transportation to carry out a study in 4 years, giving those of us here in Congress a full year to analyze the results before the highway programs expire once again. We can't continue to burden future generations with out-of-control spending, and this amendment is a signal to future Congresses that we must find lasting solutions for infrastructure investment. I want to thank Senator Kelly and Senator Cornyn for their support in this effort, and I urge the rest of my colleagues to support this amendment. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. President,
Senator from Arizona.
as we work to pass this bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to upgrade and modernize our country's infrastructure, I'm glad to be here joining Senator Lummis to introduce this amendment to include our Highway Cost Allocation Act. As a former engineer and astronaut, my career has taught me about the importance of having the data to tackle a complex issue. This bipartisan amendment would require the Secretary of Transportation to conduct the first comprehensive study of vehicle highway use in nearly 25 years. This information would inform decisions to address the Highway Trust Fund's revenue shortfalls during its next reauthorization cycle. That's important for growing states like Arizona and other western states, and for our entire country. So I urge my colleagues to support our bipartisan amendment, and I yield back.
I ask unanimous consent that Senator Capito and I be allowed to speak briefly just before the vote. Senator Capito.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. President, I rise to support this amendment. This amendment, as we know, would require the Department of Transportation to conduct a highway cost allocation study, the first one since 1997. Vehicles are different than they were in 1997, and roadway use has increased significantly. This study will help us to analyze the direct cost of highway use by different types of users, and then compare that to user fee revenue contributions to the Highway Trust Fund. This is about gathering roadway use information to inform decisions to address the Highway Trust Fund shortfalls. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on the Lummis, Kelly, Cornyn amendment, and thank you.
President,
Senator
I want to join my voice with that of our ranking member, Senator Capito, and to say I please rise in support of the amendment offered by Senator Lummis, Senator Cornyn, Senator Kelly to direct the U.S. Department of Transportation to conduct a highway user cost allocation study. It's what we're going to vote on here in just a minute or two. A cost allocation study helps determine the costs in terms of road use and damage that are attributable to the different types of vehicles that use our roads. This study will evaluate the vehicle weights and miles that travel in each class to determine the use and damage done to roads, and then compare them to the amount paid in user fees to the Highway Trust Fund. My colleagues know the Highway Trust Fund has been spending more than it collects for nearly 2 decades, and as we look to equitably grow this equitably address this growing shortfall, this study will help us better understand the extent to which different roadway users benefit from roads and how they should fairly contribute to the upkeep of those roads, highways, and bridges. This cost allocation study will help Congress ensure that all vehicles pay their fair share I strongly urge my colleagues to support this very worthy amendment. Thank you. And I would ask for a quorum. Note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
Thank you.
Here we go.
The quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the following amendment be called up to the substitute and reported by number. Number 1, Lee, number 2255, substitute. And further, that the following the vote on Amendment 2181, the Senate vote in relation to the Lee amendment with no amendments in order to the amendment prior to a vote in relation to the amendment, with 60 affirmative votes required for adoption, and 5 minutes for Senator Lee and 1 minute for myself for debate prior to the vote.
Is there an objection? Without objection.
As a result of this
Clerk will
agreement,
report the amendment by number.
as a result of
Senator from Delaware, Mr. Carper, for Mr. Lee, proposes an amendment number 2254 to amendment number 2137.
thank you. As a result of this agreement, there will be 2 roll call votes at 11:45 a.m. The first vote would be on the Lummis-Kelly Amendment number 2181. The second vote would be on the Lee Amendment number 2255. We continue to work on scheduling additional votes following the caucus lunches.
Under the previous order, the question occurs on Lummis-Kelly Amendment number 2181. Is there sufficient second? There appears to be. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mr. Braun, Mr. Brown, Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito,